everybody, welcome back to Taji's World of Books and welcome to another book series recommendation video. Hey you guys, so welcome back. So today I am going to be talking about a pretty controversial book. And I say it's controversial because it's controversial in the sense that some people really love it and other people absolutely hate this book and they give it a 1 star. So literally like the reviews that you see, if you go on Goodreads, check it out, are going to range from a 1 star to a 4 star. So for me, I'm going to say that it falls in the 4 star rating, and I'm going to try to explain my thinking around this book as I go. Okay, and that is the Claiming of Sleeping Beauty series, or the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, written by Anne Rice, but she wrote it under the pen name of A.N. Roquelaure, right? And so that's this book. And for whatever reason, I thought that I must have thought that I needed it twice. So there's 2 different versions of it. I tend to like this cover better than I like the discreet cover. This was like the Target, or like there was a Target version, but this is the discreet cover and that's the other cover. And so, but they're like literally, I say the same identical book. And you can find these are all on audio. There is a version, be careful, because there's a version of this book, or maybe it's Beauty's Punishment, that is like a abridged version, and then there's the unabridged version. And the abridged version is like 4 hours long, and the unabridged is like 8 hours. So make sure you get the correct version of that. So just a little caveat. Okay. So this particular series, to start off with, The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, is a Sleepy Beauty retelling. It's a dark, erotic fantasy series or story. And in this particular world, it's the same that, Sleeping Beauty fell under the dreaming spell of the witch that cursed her to sleep until she finds Prince Charming. And so in this particular story, Prince Charming comes along, and Prince Charming comes along in the form of, I think his name is, I can't remember what the prince's name is, but the prince comes, and rather than awakening Sleeping Beauty with a kiss, as in the traditional fairy tale, this prince awakens Beauty by raping her. And it's, when I say that he's raping her, he assaults her in the sense that he doesn't have permission to have sexual intercourse with her. He does it, but he does it in a passionate and embracing and bringing her to release type way, if that makes sense. So it's not like a violent assault. It is an assault because he doesn't have permission, and she's sleeping, and he is thrusting himself inside of her, and she awakens to him. And now he says, I'm going to make you my princess. I'm going to take you away to my land, and, to my homeland, and make you my princess there. And I have claimed you, and I have saved your kingdom from ruin. And so therefore you must follow my every command and obey, and obey my every whim. And so he strips Beauty of all of her clothes, and he then, enslaves her as a pleasure slave and takes her away to the land of, and I forget what the land that they go to, but whatever the land is that he lives in, it's the land of pleasure. And so he takes her away. But the thing that's really difficult in this book is that when he takes her away, he parades her through her kingdom totally naked, in front of her parents, in front of, the court and courtier, and in front of all of like the servants and lonely, everyone. Like, she's paraded out for them to see her beauty. But he does it in a way that's like, Beauty, why are the tears? He's like, you're beautiful, and you're my princess, and I'm gonna display you, and they're gonna enjoy you as much as I enjoy you. So it's servitude, and it's slavery, and it's sexual slavery, but it's done in a way that you're like, is this consensual? Does she want this? Like, this is horrible. And so as you're reading it, you're like, this is assault. This is not okay. Like, this feels really gross and like terrible. And your heart is racing as you read this. And as you read it, you're just like, I don't understand. Like, Anne Rice gives you a little of, like, she writes a little sort of an intro or a preface to this. And she says that this is the story and the land of, great pleasure, where, people are forced to experience, the sexual heights of their desire and are allowed to express themselves in different ways. But as you're reading it, you go like, this doesn't seem to be consensual. It seems non-consensual. And there are situations where there are punishments that are rendered for small infractions. So they're like trussed up and, bound with their women with their legs spread on a St. Andrew's cross, and anybody that walks by can fondle them and do whatever they want to them in this world. And you're just like, oh my God, if this was done to me, like I would just be horrified and miserable. But it's very clear that Beauty and all of the people, the pleasure slaves that are all princesses and princes from other neighboring kingdoms, where their families and courts have given these princes and princesses to this land as a tribute to this kingdom to learn the art of pleasure. And so while they're there, they are slaves, and they are there for whatever magnitude or amount of time the queen of this land deems necessary. And so, for example, there is Prince Alexei, who is the queen of this kingdom's favorite and pleasure slave. And he does something to Beauty's prince, and to Beauty, he kind of looks at her in a in a lascivious way, and the prince doesn't like it. And so he's going to punish him, and he punishes him by bringing him to the prince's bedchamber, and Beauty has to watch, and there are paddling and, and cropping and things that are done to him. And then the prince has sex with him, and Beauty's made to watch. And you're going, is he raping him, or does he want this? Because clearly Alexei is aroused and, is interested, even though there are tears that are streaming down his face, and he's seeming to fight and buck against this, at the same time, like, is it forced pleasure? So you just are kind of like, there's a lot of mixed messages in this book where you are sort of confused as to whether it is consensual or non-consensual, because in this kingdom, they paddle them to the point of like where you're sobbing and in tears, but the men are clearly aroused and the women are aroused as well. And so you don't know if people are really wanting this, if it's part of the experience. And a lot of people refer to this, and Anne Rice refers to this as a game, but when you're reading it, it doesn't seem like a game. So you're so confused, and it's so angsty because you don't know what's happening, and you want to understand this world, and you want to understand the degradation and the kink, and the paddling and the spanking and the different types of kink. Like there's pony play, there's people that are made to walk around like puppies, and like all kinds of stuff that's going on, and you just are like, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm very confused. And so that is the Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. It's all about her introduction into this world and her experience in this world, and what this means for her, and what this means for her kingdom, and what this means about this particular kingdom, this faraway land of pleasure that she has been thrust into, after having awoken after sleeping for like 25 years. So that's the Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. I gave this a 4 out of 5 star. I gave it a 4 of angst and spice. It's a 5. This is erotic novel for sure. There's spice on every single page. Like every single page, you're like, what the hell? You're like, oh! You're like, it's spicy. There's no question about it. This is a spicy ass book. Okay. So just be prepared for that. So then the next book is The Punishment, or Beauty's Punishment. And sort of something happens at the end of this that Beauty inexplicably decides to, make a rash decision, and she goes off. And I like it because at the beginning of the book, it tells you the story thus far. And so we see after a century long slumber, Sleeping Beauty opens her eyes to the, rather than to a kiss of the prince, he is thrusting into her. She develops this strong attachment to him, these strong feelings of him. She becomes the prince's naked pleasure slave. And then after that, she is brought to the court of Queen Eleanor. That's Queen Eleanor is the queen of this realm. And that's the prince's mother. And she experiences, the training hall, and the training hall where all the prince and princesses or the pleasure slaves go to learn to be obedient and to learn to be a pleasure slave. And during that time, she becomes the favorite of Lady Juliana as well as the prince while they're training her. And so then at the end of the first novel, she decides to do something rash when she sees Tristan. And Tristan is he basically is a rebel in the kingdom and is bucking against the system. And Tristan was given to Lord Stefan. And Lord Stefan is trying to tame Tristan, but he can't, because Tristan and Lord Stefan had a relationship outside of the kingdom many years before. And in that relationship, Tristan always bested Stefan. And so now that Stefan is the master, Tristan is not taking to that well. So what happens as a result of this is that they are sent away for further punishment, as well as teaching and tutelage. And that is what we experience in this book at the marketplace. And you are just horrified. You don't understand what's happening. You don't know what's going down. This is crazy. Like, you're just like, oh my gosh. And like, just look at that cover. That cover just tells you it all. Like, it is just... And so when she gets to the village, she is then sold off to the captain of the guard, where she experiences pleasures to the highest degree, but in ways that you're just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, but clearly Beauty, and it's almost like you're in Beauty's place. So here you're confused, you don't understand, you like don't know what to make of all of this. And, you know, while you're being forced to experience and enjoy things, you still are just really confused. And over here, you're starting to come to some realization that you're choosing to participate in this, and that you don't have to participate, but you kind of do. But what happens if you rebel? What happens if you buck against? And there's further sort of acceptance of this as she has conversations with Tristan. There's another character that comes on the scene here that's called Laurent, and Laurent is going to play a significant role as things progress. And Tristan has his lessons to be learned. You're starting to learn about how things go down at the village. This is where you start to learn about pony play. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know that I could be trussed up like that. Like, what? Like, this is crazy. And so the story really evolves from there. And again, this is a 5 in terms of spice. It is a 4 in terms of angst. But again, you're starting to really understand. Like, if you stick with the story, you're like, oh, I see what this is becoming. I see where this is going. And so at the end of this, there is a threat that happens. And as a result of the threat, some new sort of revelations, ensue, and some new sort of characters come on the scene. And so that is Beauty's Punishment. And then sort of the wrap up of the story is in Beauty's Release. And here we are really starting to understand much more of what all of this means. And we're seeing them in a new kingdom, and we're seeing the new pleasures that sort of ensue in this new kingdom. And there are several other characters that are very relevant to the story. We have Tristan, we have Laurent, we have Beauty, we have Dimitri, we have a couple of other characters, Lexi, that is going to be really significant in later parts of the story. And so it evolves more, and Beauty's thinking evolves, and you start to see that what you thought in the beginning is not necessarily what's going down as a result, and you're starting to see things in a very, very different way. And for sure, this is a 4, and angst of a 4, and spice of a 5. Okay, so then 20 years goes by, and then we come to Beauty's Kingdom. And so after 20 years evolve, and this ends on an HEA, and it really is a culmination of the story of all of the characters, because Beauty really finds her place and figures out what she wants and where she's going and who she's going to be. And so that's that. And so now 20 years has gone by, and some significant changes has gone on. And Queen Eleanor in this realm, who reigned over the, Bon Vivant, I think it's called Bon Vivant, is what the realm is called. And Queen Eleanor has passed away, and so has her son, the prince, who originally awakened Beauty, has passed away. And they are no longer able to run this realm. And as a result, the realm is diminishing, and there are things that are happening that, if they want to preserve this way of life, they're going to need somebody to run it. And so that's when they go to Beauty and her king. I'm not going to say who it is. They go to Beauty and her king, and they ask them to return because the land has fell in disrepute, and they want to revive it to what it once was. And as you read this story, you really start to understand everything that went down over here was very different than what you thought it was. And now you're really starting to understand that it is a game, and that it is all about choice. And how Beauty, after having been a pleasure slave herself, chooses to implement the rules and the way that things go down in this society. She does it in a way now that it is very clear for all involved that we're making a choice to do this. And she takes out some of the sadistic games and makes them games that are, or puts them in trials that are going to be best suited for the personality of the pleasure slave, so that you can have the best results. And so this really is like sort of a wrapping up and a culmination and an explanation of everything that occurred here and why it occurred and why it's relevant over here. And it was so fascinating. Now, I'm going to say that this book wasn't as good as these. These were so good because it was so angsty, because you were just like, what the hell? What the hell is going on? I am not okay with this. I don't understand what's going on. I don't want to see this happen. I'm just confused, and I'm pissed off, and I'm upset, and I'm turned on, and I don't know what the hell to make of all of this. The exact thing that Beauty was experiencing and feeling and experiencing. And over here, because all of that angst was removed and it was more of an explanation, for me, it dropped this down to a 3 rating. The angst is what took this up to a whole nother level, if that makes sense. So this was still good, and it was still nice to see like a story for all of these characters over here happen, but it just didn't carry the same punch as this. This carried a punch because you were just pissed and just all of these emotions were running through you. And this was just like, oh, I get it. That makes sense. So, having said that, that is the Sleeping Beauty trilogy. Like I said, it is a trilogy, and then sort of like, this is like an extended epilogue, if that makes sense, for all the characters that happened over here, so you could see where they wound up and how things ultimately worked themselves out in the end. And having said that, it was a fun series to read. Like I said, it's highly controversial because of the dubious consent. And I'm not going to say it's non-con. Well, the Beauty situation, the awakening of Beauty is a non-con because she couldn't consent to it because she was sleeping, but that was the awakening. But everything else, I think, puts people's backs up because they don't really understand. And like I have always said, and I've said in the past, when you're reading a book, if you DNF it and you don't finish, you don't get to realize the author's potential, the full potential of what the author was trying to convey to you. And maybe you're just not investing, you don't give a shit. Like, you're just like, I'm a tap out and I don't care how it ends. And that's totally fine. But in this instance, when you don't sort of read it through to sort of see the full culmination of it and then evaluate the total package of it, and then at that point you could still say this is crap and I didn't like it and I didn't care for it, it wasn't for me. Or you can evaluate the total package and you go, oh, I see what you were trying to do here. Like in the beginning, I didn't get it and I wasn't there. But again, I think that the experience is the same as what the pleasure slave is experiencing. Confusion, frustration, more confusion, settling in, I'm still not okay with this, satisfaction, desire to please, desire to understand, and then just ultimate desire. And so it was a fascinating read for sure. I enjoyed it much more than I thought that I would. You know, and I know that some of you guys have said like it's trash, don't worry, but don't read it. There is not a plot to it. It's erotic. It was an erotic novel. Like, so I went into it maybe with the not the highest expectations and not with the highest sort of like, this is going to be like a 5-star world building, fascinating, dynamic. No, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to be like pretty crap. And so when it turned out to have like, you know, it was like, what? Okay. I think I learned more about BDSM and the slave master dynamic. But then I learned a lot about myself too, because I was like teasing. I was talking to Charles and I was like, I wish somebody would come in with a riding crop and like be like, crack. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you? Snatch that damn crop and let me whip your ass and see how you like, don't you ever come at me and trying to. So it was like, I was like, had that kind of angst going on. And like, you know, like the constant paddling, I was like, I don't know, how can that be erotic, being paddled like crazy? But then when they were describing the men and they were like flagpoles, like stiff, purple, dark, like they were in it. They were in it, because if you weren't in it, it would go, and it didn't go, it was like ping, If you can interpret any of what I just said, then you know what I'm talking about. So having said that, it was fun nonetheless. So if you want a fun read, you know, you're not going to take it too seriously. You know that it's going to be erotic. You know that it's going to be like spicy and steamy, and it's going to evoke some kind of like a little bit of a like, the hell, you like, if you're good with that, then go for it, you know. So it is what it is. So I like read it with caution. So having said that, you guys, that's all that I have for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. You know, I upload videos 2 to 3 times a week. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because if you hit the subscribe button, you can find out my randomness and see when I'm going to upload a video, so you can come and hang out with me more. I've got a couple reading sprints coming up. I've got a couple book club videos coming up, so we got some fun stuff. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel so you can come hang out when we do all the cool stuff. So that's all that I have for today. You guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.